The FCC just approved a plan for what's called digital equity when it comes to the internet. But does that plan give the U.S. government full control over the internet? I'm sure you've been hearing that and seeing other claims like that floating around this app and others about what this plan actually does. And not a lot of people who are sharing this information know how to give you the full picture. So I'm going to do that with facts and receipts in this video. And I want you to keep in mind, facts, receipts, and context take time to explain. So if you're actually interested in what's going on, I highly suggest you sit down and you watch this video to the end. It is a deep dive, so if you don't have time to watch it right now, favorite it and come back to it when you have a few minutes. And before I get into all of this, if you want to read the actual document from the FCC, this digital equity plan, and all the documents that are challenging it, I will email them out to you tonight in my Newsgirl News Roundup email, so make sure you sign yourself up. The first thing you have to understand, the FCC isn't just going rogue and randomly coming up with this digital equity plan. Congress demanded they do it by law when Democrats and Republicans voted to pass the bipartisan infrastructure law 2 years ago. In that law, Congress included the first ever broadband access anti-discrimination provision of the digital age, and it required the FCC to come up with rules to prevent and identify necessary steps to eliminate digital discrimination. The law also approved $65 billion to ensure that everyone in America has access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet because, as you know, if you don't have access to the internet in this day and age, you cannot succeed in school or even at your job. So since that law was passed, for the last 2 years, the FCC has been working to accomplish the demands of Congress and this law. They brought in experts, they held multiple public hearings addressing all of this stuff. And in April of 2022, yes, April of 2022, they released to the public this digital equity plan. This plan isn't new, but it's stirring up all these issues right now because the FCC just voted to ratify the rules yesterday. So what are these rules? What does this plan really do? And does it actually give the government the ability to have full control of the internet, as you may be hearing? Well, the plan does several things, including adopting rules to facilitate equal access to broadband internet by preventing digital discrimination of access based on income, race, ethnicity, color, religion, or national origin, and identifies necessary steps to eliminate such discrimination. This rule takes into account technical and economic feasibility for the internet providers. It adopts rules that prohibit digital discrimination of access. It amends the FCC's existing enforcement rules so they can specifically authorize investigations looking into cases of potential digital discrimination of access. And it revises the Commission's informal consumer complaint process to provide a new portal for consumers to easily file complaints against broadband internet companies the consumer believes are violating these new rules. Okay, that is what the document says. Nowhere in this document is there any word, phrase, or paragraph that directly says, or even indirectly implies, that the United States government could take control of the whole internet. I'm not even really sure how that could even be possible. But like everything else the U.S. government does, there is politically charged language in this rule. You may have actually caught it when I was reading it to you. The whole concept that internet digital discrimination is a thing is a controversial concept. It's one the president has believed since he took office is real, and it's something that a lot of the Republicans don't think is real. This new FCC rule defines digital discrimination as a policy or practice of an internet company that impacts customers' access to broadband internet based on their income level, race, ethnicity, color, religion, or national origin, or policies and practices that are intended to treat broadband customers differently. Now, according to the bipartisan infrastructure law, the FCC must take into consideration the fact that for some of these internet companies, there are legitimate technical or financial reasons that prevent the company from providing equal access to broadband service in particular communities. And those reasons are very real and need to be taken into consideration. The thing is, this rule has an enforcement mechanism if internet companies are found to have practices that digitally discriminate when it comes to broadband access. The FCC can investigate or try and come up with solutions with the internet company, but if the companies don't budge and they don't have a legitimate technical or business reason why, the FCC can impose penalties on those companies. And that is where this idea of government taking over the internet comes from. It actually comes from this guy, Brendan Carr. He is an FCC commissioner appointed by former President Donald Trump. Now, if his name sounds familiar to you, it should. We talked a lot about him last year when he was very, very vocal about the FCC banning TikTok. Carr voted against this digital equity plan yesterday, and he wrote a 9-page statement about why. The very first line says, the Biden administration's entire approach to the internet, its broadband agenda, if you will, can be boiled down to one word: control. His statement goes on to say this new FCC rule controls these companies by micromanaging where they should build their broadband infrastructure, how they should market and advertise their services, and he doesn't like the federal programs Congress established to reduce the cost of internet services for low-income families. He says this is not free market capitalism. He says this agenda of expanding access to broadband internet across the country is skyrocketing costs, causing delays, and adding unnecessary red tape to the internet system. And Carr isn't alone. Republican Senator Ted Cruz, along with 27 other Republican colleagues, sent a letter to the FCC opposing this rule, saying these rules are too broad and they are an existential threat to these internet businesses because they would punish the practical business choices and profit-related decisions that sustain a vibrant and dynamic free enterprise system. So do these rules allow the federal government to take control of the internet? I gave you all the facts. You can decide for yourself.